I had been chasing David Robinson for 3 months. He held me in his arms, kissed me, and showered me with gifts. But every time I confessed my feelings, he would brush me off with a casual, "Just wait a little longer." After hearing that excuse one too many times, frustration boiled over. I slapped him across the face. "I genuinely want to be with you, and you're just using me for fun, aren't you?" The moment my palm met his cheek, something shifted. His eyes darkened, and the way he looked at me changed. Welcome to History Channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. The night had barely ended when I found myself sitting in David Robinson's car, the warmth of alcohol still buzzing in my veins. Encouraged by the liquid courage, I leaned in, stopping just half an inch away from his face. "Do you want to be with me?" I asked. David Robinson looked at me with that familiar gentleness, even reaching out to pinch my cheek. Hope sparked in my chest. This time, surely, he would give me the answer I'd been waiting for. But then, "Maybe in a little while," he said. The exact same excuse. The same line he had used to turn me down 4 times. A chill spread through my chest. I stared at him for a long time, waiting, willing him to say something different. Eventually, he met my gaze and raised an eyebrow. I had fallen for that face at first sight. Chased him for 3 months. Confessed 4 times. Every time, rejected with the same excuse. Before I even asked tonight, I had already decided this was the last time. If he said no, then that was it. I was done. He could play games with me, but not after I had made my feelings this clear. David Robinson was making me feel like a pastime, a distraction to fill his empty hours. Then let's end it here. Don't come looking for me again. I reached for the door handle, ready to leave. But before I could step out, his hand caught my wrist, pulling me back. "Where are you going? Are you mad?" My anger boiled over. I swung my hand and slapped him across the face. "David Robinson, do you think it's fun to string me along? Or what? Do you have a wife at home and just came out here looking for a thrill?" His face snapped to the side from the impact. He blinked in disbelief, clearly stunned. But within seconds, he turned back to look at me, and his gaze had turned dangerous. A shiver crawled down my spine. "What are you doing?" asked what? "I don't have a wife." As if that was the answer I wanted. Like I gave a damn. "I don't care." I was done. I wrenched my hand free, stepped out of the car, and deleted his contact the second I got home. Then I gathered every expensive gift he had ever given me, packed them up, and planned to send them back first thing in the morning. By the time I finished, the alcohol had fully settled in, leaving me with a throbbing headache. I collapsed onto my bed, my eyes burning. I should have been asleep. But I wasn't. I wasn't good with alcohol. Tonight I had only used it as an excuse to get close to him, to push things further. My fingers brushed against the small, sharp-edged package in my pocket. I pulled it out and tossed it onto the nightstand. I admitted it. I didn't get what I wanted, and now I was throwing a fit. I liked him. There was no denying that. But what gave him the right to keep me hanging like this? If he had just told me he wasn't interested, I wouldn't have wasted so much time. I met David Robinson at a bar. At the time, I was strapped for cash and had taken on a well-paying side gig, cosplaying as an NPC and interacting with customers. That was when I spotted him in the crowd. Sharp features, a strikingly handsome face, a presence that stood out even in a dimly lit room. I poured him a drink, leaning in closer than necessary, but he barely reacted. Just took the glass with a polite thank you. That was our first meeting. For me, it was love at first sight. For him, it was nothing. He didn't frequent the bar, so I only saw him twice. It was the second time that we finally had real contact. That night, I had forced myself to drink with a customer all evening for a $3,000 tip. When I left through the back alley, still in full costume, I got cornered by a group of drunks who mistook me for an easy target. There was no dramatic hero rescuing me. I handled them myself. 5 against 1. I took some hits, a scrape on my forehead, bruises on my arms, but I held my ground. I was about to return to the bar's dressing room for some first aid when I ran straight into David Robinson. He stepped toward me, his voice gentle. "Need help?" A rare opportunity. No way was I letting it slip by. So I played it up. Legs weakening, I let myself collapse right into his arms. My palm landed against his chest and I stiffened. Hard muscle. Solid. Damn. Then I heard a chuckle above my head. "You're barely conscious, but your dirty mind is still awake, huh?" I stayed silent, playing dead. He sighed and resigned himself to the situation, supporting me as he fetched a first aid kit. His touch was careful, his hands steady as he cleaned my wounds. The sting of the disinfectant made me want to squirm, but the sight of his face, so close, so focused, made me hold it in. I lost track of my hands. At some point, I gripped his wrist too hard. David inhaled sharply, a slight wince on his face. But he still smiled. Returning kindness with pain? That's not very fair. The curve of his lips, the way he looked at me, it shot straight to my chest, sending my heart into a frantic rhythm. I changed the subject. "Why are you backstage?" "The owner's a friend of mine. I came to see him." "Oh." He must have noticed me staring because he suddenly asked, "What is it? Got something to say?" I didn't hesitate. "Can I buy you a drink sometime?" He didn't say yes. He didn't say no either. I inched closer, forcing him to meet my eyes. I blinked slowly, asked again, "Can I?" David Robinson didn't answer. Instead, he asked for my name. "Ronald Barron?" He repeated, like he was testing how it felt in his mouth. Then suddenly, "You smell nice." I wasn't even wearing cologne. Just the faint scent of powder and lemon body wash. But because of that one comment, I never changed brands. A week later, he kept his word and bought me a drink, some special liqueur, light enough that it wouldn't get me drunk. By then, I was already obsessed with him. Like an addiction. Craving any excuse to touch him. To be honest, I just wanted to kiss him. So I found an opportunity, used the game as an excuse to get close. He didn't dodge. Heart pounding, I pressed a quick, fleeting kiss to his lips. Barely a touch. I was so nervous I started sweating. David didn't move at first. Then, suddenly, he picked up his glass, downed a sip of liquor, and kissed me back. Deeply. Heat, pressure, the taste of alcohol slipping between our lips. When he pulled away, he laughed. "And you call that a kiss?" That moment, it made me want him even more. After that, we went out often. Had meals together. Played games when I wasn't working. David Robinson was busy, but he made time for me. And that made me think, maybe, just maybe, he liked me too. So I confessed. For the past 3 months, I had chased David Robinson relentlessly. Now that I was trying to cut him out of my life, I found myself lying awake, unable to sleep. Frustrated, I buried myself under the blankets, but the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. The next morning, with dark circles under my eyes, I did something rare, woke up early on a weekend. I cleaned my apartment, waited for the delivery guy to pick up the box of gifts, then finally took a shower and collapsed back into bed, hoping to catch up on sleep. My feelings always came fast and left just as quickly. If David Robinson had rejected me outright from the start, I probably would have given up in a week. But he didn't. He gave me just enough attention, just enough response to keep me hanging, but never enough to satisfy me. It had driven me crazy. And now, even as I tried to move on, I felt like I couldn't breathe. When I woke up again, I saw several missed calls from him. I hesitated, debating whether to call back. Before I could decide, my phone lit up again. I declined the call, steeling myself, and blocked his number. For the rest of the day, he was silent. But by nightfall, he called again, from a different number. I accidentally picked up. "So, you're really cutting me off?" he asked, straight to the point. "The gifts were for you. I'm not taking them back." "Do whatever you want with them," I said indifferently. "Ronald Barron." He had never called me by my full name before. I wasn't intimidated. What? Are you picking a fight with me? No, I said. David, I don't know what you take me for, but if you don't like me, that's fine. I'm done chasing you. Silence. A long, drawn-out pause before he finally spoke. Come downstairs. I pulled back my curtains and, sure enough, his familiar black car was parked outside. A flicker of hesitation crept in, but then I remembered how many times he had turned me down. I had already decided to walk away. Go home, David. I turned off the lights and stood by the window for a long time. He didn't call again. He didn't leave right away, either. Only when it was past midnight did he finally drive off. Monday morning, I had an early class. As I walked out, I deliberately passed by the spot where his car had been parked the night before. On top of a nearby trash can, I saw a pile of cigarette butts. David Robinson wasn't a frequent smoker. Had he spent the night chain-smoking just because he wasn't used to me not chasing him anymore? That night, I had dinner with an old roommate from freshman year, Richard Richardson, who was now a year ahead of me. The moment we met, he wasted no time prying. So, what happened to that guy you were seeing? The one off campus? Not my boyfriend, I corrected. It's over. Richard put his chopsticks down immediately. What, he screwed you over too? He asked, not waiting for my answer before scolding me. Ronald, when the hell are you gonna learn? You're a guy, how do you not get this? You're too sincere. You don't hold anything back. You might as well write easy target on your face. Men don't treasure what comes too easily, that's why they treat you like a joke. I stopped eating. Is being sincere really such a bad thing? Only if both people are sincere, Richard shot back. If it's just one, that's not sincerity, it's stupidity. I shook my head. I didn't agree. But he wasn't done. Did you forget your ex from freshman year? The one who outed you and forced you to drop out and enlist. That wasn't because of him, I said calmly. I left because I wanted a change. It had nothing to do with him. Well, that's not how everyone else saw it, Ronald. I met his gaze. I don't care. Richard sighed. You're so damn stubborn. All your intelligence went into your looks. One day, someone's gonna scam you out of your money and your body, and maybe then you'll finally wake up. I spread my hands in surrender. Joke's on them. I don't have money. Because of my late-night part-time jobs, I had moved out of the dorms early to avoid disturbing my roommates. Tonight, I wasn't working, so after dinner, I decided to walk home. The cold air might help clear my head. Richard's words lingered in my mind. Did I really look that easy to manipulate? Was it wrong to want control over my own choices? To not overthink pros and cons, gains and losses? I just wanted something real, something passionate. But in other people's eyes, that just made me an idiot? A gust of wind sent a chill down my spine. I pulled my coat tighter around me. A tall figure stepped in front of me, blocking my way. David Robinson. He looked down at me, his gaze unreadable. I've been waiting for you all day. I exhaled slowly. Mr. Robinson, do you need something? I had already slapped him. What was left to say? No, he said simply. I'm just here to drive you home. I stared at him. What? Get in, he said. I scoffed. No need. No one's gonna rob a 6-foot-tall guy like me for my money or my body. You're busy, Mr. Robinson. Don't waste your time on me. David took a step closer, and before I could react, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward the car. There were too many people around for me to make a scene. Buckle up, he said as we sat inside. I didn't move. So he leaned in, pressing a light kiss against my cheek. What's with the attitude? He murmured. I wiped my face, expression blank. That's what I should be asking you, Mr. Robinson. What exactly do you want? Hearing you call me Mr. Robinson over and over, it's kind of heartbreaking. Before I could respond, he started the car. His voice was calm, smooth, almost too casual. You said you're done chasing me, right? I turned to look at him. He smiled. Then it's my turn to chase you. I muttered under my breath, you're insane. David Robinson followed me into my apartment like he belonged there. No matter how much I tried to shove him out, he refused to leave. Frustration surged in my chest. "David, what the hell is wrong with you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward, caging me against the door, and pressed a kiss to my forehead. "I waited outside your building for 4 hours last night," he murmured. "You're really ruthless, Ronald. Get off me." I shoved him away, my expression dark. Then, without thinking, I slapped him. "If you're looking for someone to mess around with, find someone else. David, I don't owe you anything. Stop bothering me." A faint red imprint bloomed on his cheek, but instead of getting angry, he only smiled. "Weren't you the one who said you liked me? You confessed, then ran away? How could someone be so shameless? David, do you even hear yourself?" He surged forward again, pressing me against the wall, his breath warm against my ear. And then, something changed. Something I had never felt before. A pressure, firm and unmistakable, pressing against me. I stiffened. "You feel that?" His voice had turned husky. My mind raced, flashing through every moment we had kissed, hugged, touched. He had always kept a careful distance, never crossing any lines. Was this because I slapped him? Electricity shot through my brain as realization struck me like a lightning bolt. Suddenly, his endless excuses for rejecting me all made sense. "Calm down," I muttered. "How am I supposed to calm down?" He kissed me again, relentless. "This is breaking and entering. Then go ahead and report me. You're fucking shameless." The thing pressing against my lower back seemed to twitch in agreement. Jesus. You know what? I think I need to calm down too. David Robinson had no intention of letting go. 5 minutes later, after a brief physical struggle, neither of us was injured, but he looked more exhilarated than ever, eyes bright, expression predatory, like a starving wolf finally closing in on its meal. His gaze made my skin crawl. I grabbed a set of pajamas from my bedroom and threw them at him. "Go take a shower. Cool off." David stood in the doorway, then glanced at the nightstand. His expression darkened. "We were apart for 1 day, and you already brought someone home?" I followed his line of sight. "That damn box. The one I had bought for him 2 nights ago." I forced my expression into indifference. "What does it have to do with you?" David Robinson smirked, slinging the clothes over his arm. "We'll talk later." I heard the water running in the bathroom, and my thoughts drifted. Then, feeling guilty for even thinking about him that way, I shook my head furiously and scolded myself. "He played you like a fool for 3 months, and you're still thinking about this." By the time he emerged from the bathroom, he smelled like my shower gel. "Took you long enough," he said, settling onto the couch. "Sit with me, Ronald. Let's talk." I hesitated, my emotions tangled. But since this whole thing needed closure, I leaned against the armrest of the couch and nodded. "Go ahead." I wanted to hear what kind of excuse he'd come up with. "You must think I'm an asshole," he said, "rejecting you so many times, refusing to give you an answer, then showing up here like this." I stayed silent. David sighed. "I didn't delay things to mess with you. It wasn't an excuse. Just like you realized earlier, we don't know enough about each other to make this work long-term. Instead of dating just to break up later, I thought it was better not to start at all." I scoffed. Classic player talk. "If you were so rational, why the hell are you kissing me now?" He wanted the intimacy, the thrill, but not the responsibility. David Robinson seemed to read my mind. He reached out, pinched my cheek lightly. "I hugged you, kissed you, and gave you gifts because I wanted to build something with you." I lifted my head, unimpressed. "David, do you know what you sound like right now?" He raised an eyebrow. "What? A hypocrite?" David chuckled, unfazed. Then suddenly, "Ronald, can I get a glass of water?" "No." "Fine. I'll order delivery then." "You're still here?" David laughed. "We still have things to talk about." I stood up. "Besides this, do you have anything else to say?" He leaned back, eyes darkening. Do I still have any of your trust? I didn't answer. David lowered his gaze. A few taps on his phone, and a notification popped up on mine. My bank account balance had just increased by $30,000. I told you, he said. I don't take back gifts. Since you returned them, I'll compensate you with an equivalent amount. I stared at the screen, utterly baffled. You don't have to do this. The more I looked at that number, the less I understood what went on in his head. David Robinson wasn't just playing games. He was playing in ways I couldn't even begin to comprehend. Forget the delivery, I muttered. I'll get you some water. He put his phone down. Thank you. When I handed him the glass, he took it, but instead of letting go, he held onto my wrist. If my words don't give you enough security, will money do it? I'm telling you exactly what I mean. His gaze locked onto mine, unwavering. Ronald, I like you. Maybe even more than that. But I don't know you well enough yet. You act open and honest, but the truth is, I don't even know what kind of food you like. Every time we go out, you always adjust to my preferences. Every gift I give you, you say you like. Most of the time, the only response I get from you is anything's fine or okay. David's eyes bore into me. Ronald, you hold a lot back. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I don't. David Robinson took one step closer, lacing his fingers through mine. How can someone not have any preferences? He asked. I hesitated. I really don't. If I had to name one thing I liked, it would probably be money. Then we'll find one, he said simply. If you really don't care about anything, then what am I supposed to do when we fight? How do I make it up to you? You're overthinking it. Just as I was about to pull away, he leaned in and kissed me. What the hell are you? He pulled back, licking his lips. Just a kiss. Consider it a promise. I wiped my lips, still tingling. What promise? That you'll give us a chance? Get out, Tisk. He smirked and kissed me again, quick and teasing. Then why did you use your tongue? David Robinson. I should have bitten him. You bastard. He only chuckled. It's fine if you're not ready now. Then his voice dropped, low and smooth. I'll be the one chasing you now, Ronald. The emotional whiplash left my head spinning. I needed space to think. Just go home, David. In such a hurry to kick me out? Or do you plan on staying the night? He didn't answer, but his expression, calm, expectant, made it obvious he had no objections. His chest stretched my shirt too tight, making his muscles look even more defined than usual. I swallowed and forced my gaze away. Fine. Stay if you want. But you're sleeping on the couch? Okay. He agreed so easily it pissed me off even more. I grabbed a blanket, threw it at him, and bolted for my room. I'm going to bed. You? Just sleep early too. Wait. I stopped. He smiled. Ronald, don't you think you owe me a secret in return? What do you want to know? He looked up at me. For starters, put my number back in your contacts. I sighed but did as he asked. Then he gestured toward my bedroom. And one more thing. What's up with that package? I froze. I knew exactly what he meant. It was for you, I admitted. David didn't look surprised at all. Of course, he had already guessed. He just wanted to hear me say it. So, you wanted to sleep with me? Not anymore. But before, you really wanted to? Do you ever shut up? I snapped. Instead of answering, he laughed. Ronald, this side of you, this is what I wanted to see. I blinked, caught off guard. And suddenly I realized he was right. When I had been chasing him, I had been careful. Too careful. I had always put his feelings first. Like that night when he called after a late business dinner, saying he wanted to see me. Even though I was sick with a fever, I still forced myself out of bed. Back then, I thought I was being ridiculous. He was just one person. Why had I been so desperate to see him? We had kissed that night, but he noticed I wasn't feeling well. He had checked my temperature, said nothing, then quietly went out to buy medicine. After that, he stayed the entire night, letting me curl up against his arm while I slept. I thought that meant we were together. I had even planned to make it official, only for him to turn me down again. Back in my room, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at my phone. A notification popped up, my bank balance. $30,000. I sighed and texted him. I can't accept this. I sent it back. 2 minutes later, your account has received $500,000. What the fuck? Where did the extra $200,000 come from? I fired off another text. What are you doing? David replied immediately. Every time you send it back, I'll add another $200,000. I'll keep going until you feel like keeping it. I rubbed my temples. Do you have too much money and not enough ways to spend it? Not exactly. But it's rare for me to meet someone I actually like. I want to try. If you don't feel comfortable, we can do the paperwork and make it official as a gift. That's not what I meant. Then just accept it. Consider it proof of my sincerity in pursuing you. I hesitated. A week ago, I had wanted nothing more than for him to reciprocate my feelings. But now that he had, I felt uncertain. Lost in thought, I didn't realize how long I had been staring at the screen until another message popped up. What are you thinking about? His name was still listed as David Robinson in my contacts. On the screen, the status read, typing. He was waiting for me. Watching. He prompted again. I exhaled. Come in. The doors unlocked. A second later, his response popped up. A blushing dog emoji. Weirdly cute. No, I'll get used to sleeping on the couch first. I rolled my eyes and shut my phone, finally ready to sleep. But just as I was about to close my eyes, my screen lit up again. David Robinson, good night. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then finally, good night. David Robinson had two sides to him. Ever since his preferences had been exposed, he didn't bother hiding them anymore. He used the excuse of it's too late to drive back to stay over at my place far too often. Of course, he slept on the couch and I had my massive king-sized bed all to myself. But every morning, without fail, he'd find an excuse to barge into my room under the pretense of waking me up, only to kiss me awake. Sometimes, I had only just fallen asleep from staying up late. Being startled awake by him always put me in a foul mood. But no matter how many times I smacked him in retaliation, it never deterred him. In fact, he only seemed to get more excited. More than once, my so-called innocence had nearly been compromised. I was willing. He was the one trying to play the saint. Ronald, I have to go on a business trip. I'll be back in a week. I rolled away, wrapping myself in my blanket. Why are you telling me this? I'll bring you flowers when I come back, okay? His tone was light, but the meaning behind his words was clear. This was the end of our 2-month trial. He was asking me to be his. We'll see. David Robinson was a damn good pursuer. Better than I had ever been. He noticed the smallest changes in my mood, even something as simple as an extra period in my texts. When I stopped accepting his gifts, he switched tactics, showing up to my place with homemade meals instead. And I had to admit Mr. Robinson could cook. It wasn't just decent, it was good. Within days, my stomach had fallen for him, too. Then there was the matter of cultivating my preferences, something he had mentioned before. Apparently, it wasn't just talk. I don't know what you've been through before, he had said. But from the way you live so fiercely in the moment, I can tell it wasn't great. You became independent too early, lacked affection growing up, but somehow, that didn't make you cold. You're sincere, and your personality is amazing. But that's just the surface. The real you doesn't actually care. Living is fine, but dying wouldn't be so bad either. You don't have interests. You don't have hobbies. So does that mean your feelings for me are just temporary too? I had wanted to deny it. But that day, David Robinson cut me off before I could. So, do you want to come with me and rediscover what makes life exciting? He had asked. And then we'll be together. For a long, long time, no one had ever said something like that to me before. I had been too stunned to think, so I had just nodded. So, David Robinson took me skydiving. And he jumped with me. On the waiver, our names were signed together. I had glanced at it, but all I could think about was how our names looked side by side. Then, as we plummeted through the sky, wind roaring past our ears, our bodies tangled together, I felt my heart pounding so hard it nearly drowned out the world. When the parachute opened, he smiled at me. I hope Ronald always stays sincere and happy. The wind quieted. His voice lingered in my ears, imprinting itself onto my bones. I had already made up my mind. The moment he came back, I was going to give him my answer. But then, a message from Richard Richardson shattered everything. It was a screenshot of my ex's social media post. I had deleted and blocked William Michael from my life 2 years ago, but Richard still kept tabs. And there he was. A side profile, slightly out of focus. But it was him. David Robinson. The caption read, "New boyfriend. Handsome, right?" My breath caught in my throat. Richard spammed my phone. What the hell? How does that scumbag keep pulling hot guys? Seriously, what is this bullshit? This world is insane. My mind stalled, gears jamming, replaying the same thought over and over again. David Robinson is William Michael's boyfriend. Memories of betrayal, of people I had trusted stabbing me in the back, came flooding in like a tidal wave. Suffocating. A sharp pain pierced my chest. My heartbeat was erratic, frantic, clawing at my ribs like it wanted to escape. No way. That couldn't be true. David Robinson wouldn't lie to me, would he? He said he was on a business trip. Then why was he with William Michael? Was this all a game to him? Had he and William Michael been together this whole time? Had he deliberately approached me as some twisted form of revenge because of the beating I gave William 2 years ago? I tried to shake the thought away. William had been cut out of my life for 2 years. He wouldn't have known about my current situation. The chances of this being a calculated act of revenge were low. But I couldn't rest without answers. I called David Robinson. The line was busy. For 30 minutes, my mind ran wild. I made a plan for every possible outcome. Then finally, "Ronald, what's wrong?" I was having dinner with someone. He had finally texted back. I didn't bother with small talk. "With who?" "A client, babe." I took a deep breath. "Do you have a boyfriend?" 2 seconds passed. "Yeah." A freezing chill spread through my veins. I hadn't even gotten to my next question when another message popped up. But not officially. "Planning to ask for the title when I get back." I stared at the words. My fingers trembled. I sent him the screenshot. "David Robinson, I don't do third parties. Especially not for him." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, for the first time ever, I heard David Robinson curse. Is he out of his damn mind? His voice sharpened. "I don't know him, Ronald. He was a client's assistant. He was just there for dinner." I didn't say anything, so he rushed to explain further. He tried brushing against me when he poured my drink. I moved away. That was the extent of our interaction. I could hear the panic creeping into his voice. "Ronald, wait there. I'll handle this. I'll be home tonight." I hung up. My heartbeat was still erratic, still struggling to settle. David Robinson drove back overnight. By the time he knocked on my door, he looked exhausted, his hair slightly disheveled, dark circles forming under his eyes. "Why were you in such a rush?" I asked. "Because I was afraid you wouldn't believe me." I met his gaze, unflinching. I did have that thought. Then I stepped aside. "Come in." I decided to be honest. Funny coincidence. William Michael is my ex. I told him everything. He used to be an online streamer. Tried to drug me once, wanted to record a video and sell it. Didn't work. David Robinson listened, waiting for me to continue. But he got scared I'd retaliate, so he struck first. Photoshopped images of me and spread them all over campus, making it look like I was in those videos. For a while, I had been the subject of whispers. People looked at me strangely. Some even sent me messages. How much? I had beaten William Michael to a pulp after that. Explained everything. Cleared my name. But the damage was already done. Once a seed of doubt is planted, it's almost impossible to uproot. So I left. Changed my environment. Never looked back. Now, bringing it up again, I realized, back then, I really had been this close to being sold like a damn commodity. David Robinson exhaled sharply. He spread false rumors about you. I won't let it slide. I nodded. You must be tired from the trip. Go shower and get some rest. Instead of moving, he suddenly wrapped his arms around me. Baby, I didn't have time to buy flowers. Can I just ask you out instead? I'll make it up to you tomorrow. But I don't want to wait. I want this now. I turned, pushing him onto the bed with a hand wrapped around his throat, squeezing just enough to make a point. You made me worry. How are you going to make up for that? His pupils dilated, excitement flashing in his eyes. David Robinson grinned. I'll compensate you. And then he pulled me in. The kisses, fast, urgent, desperate, made it feel like we were making up for lost time. Somewhere along the way, discarded packaging littered the floor. David Robinson kissed me again. I woke up with my face pressed against his chest. The chaos from the night before had already been cleaned up. David Robinson ran his fingers through my hair. Up so early? Aren't you hungry? I asked. Because I was starving. I'll cook, baby. What do you want? No need. Just stay here with me a little longer. I sprawled across him, reaching for my phone with one hand and scrolling through the delivery options. He played with my hair. Are you being clingy? I nodded, already half asleep again. Yeah. Just grab the food when it gets here. Alright, love. 3 days later, William Michael came looking for David Robinson. Crying. Begging. Said he only posted that photo because David was hot and he wanted to flex. David had him thrown out. Literally. Security dragged him off the premises. But apparently he hadn't given up. He kept harassing David Robinson. Right up until the moment he saw me outside his office building. I was there to pick up my boyfriend from work. William Michael's eyes widened in shock. Ooh, you too? I laced my fingers through David's and swayed our hands lightly. Sorry, but you messed with the wrong one. This lawsuit? You're definitely losing it. David Robinson didn't even glance his way. Let's go, Ronald. We need to grab groceries. In the car mirror, I saw William Michael standing frozen in place. I couldn't help but smirk. David leaned in, kissing me on the cheek. Still looking? I turned to him, feeling ridiculously good. David Robinson, I've decided, tonight, I'm leaving a few more marks on you. His expression didn't change. But his eyes darkened, filled with anticipation. Good, he said smoothly. Just don't back out later. At the red light, I leaned over and bit his earlobe. You're such a tease. He tilted his head and pressed a kiss to my forehead. Doesn't matter as long as you like it. The light turned green. The car moved forward, carrying us to the next stop. I propped my elbow against the window, watching David Robinson's side profile. And then, for no reason at all, I laughed. What is it? He asked. I used to hate the night. To me, darkness meant nothing but loneliness and fear. When I was young, I lost both parents. 4 years, I lived in a rundown house, surviving off the kindness of neighbors and the help of my teachers. Later, when I worked part-time in college, I repaid those who had supported me, handing over envelopes of money with genuine gratitude. Only after they accepted it did I start believing maybe life had more to offer. But even then, I never planned for the future. Never thought about what lay ahead. I made money, spent money, lived in the moment. And then David Robinson showed up. And now, for the first time, I had started thinking ahead. I had started looking forward to the night. Because before the world went dark, we'd be together, hand in hand, walking side by side on a long road home. The end.
Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.